late one legislative session, I was on the floor and suddenly I heard this huge bang. And I looked around and the bang was the heavy wooden gate that led from the side aisle on the Senate of the Senate floor onto the main section. And here came Mike Thorne, who was 6'3" or something like that, and Ed Fadeley was maybe 5'11", and Thorne was walking on, kind of leaning over Fadeley. Fadeley was walking just as fast as he could into the main chamber to kind of get away with Mike Thorne. And Ted Kulingoski, who made a big deal about how he'd been a Marine and he'd been in the trenches and all that, and he was a great rescuer. He jumped up. He was only about 5'7" or something, and he jumped between those two large men and acted like he was pulling two dogs apart who were fighting. It was overreaction on his part, probably, but I asked Ed later, what the hell was going on? Why was Thorne so furious? It was rare for Thorne to lose his temper, but he was a very muscular, athletic man, and Fadeley was a little bit fat and soft, although he was very strong too. But anyway, he told me, well, the deal is, Jan, that when there are certain budget items that everybody has agreed are going to pass, that are going to be of some benefit to some special interest, they're panting to get them out and get them passed so they can get their little graft, you shouldn't maybe call it graft, but their little butter. Thorne would hold on to them so they could continue to plead with him and implore him to pass out their budget. And then at the end, he'd let it go out. Well, he went home to cut hay, which was a standard pattern for him and Senator Bob Smith, who had ranches up in Eastern Oregon. They had to go home and cut their hay, and I made a big deal about they were the Marlboro Man and the great farmers who were feeding America. I learned later that Mike Thorne lived for many years on the money the government put out to ask people to put their farming acreage into land bank because there was such a great surplus in the products they were growing. But that really struck me as ironic because Thorne was a conservative and he was always against spending government money on welfare and all these things, the people who should work harder, and here he was taking his living out of government money for land grant. But it really amused me that Fadeley had gone around, and while Thorne was home, the rules allowed the President of the Senate to go in and vote, cast the vote that the chair would have cast if he were there. So he went in and voted these budgets out so they could go to the floor and get passed, robbing Thorne of his pot of butter that he was holding on to until the last moment. And that made Thorne really mad that Fadeley had yanked something out of his clutches, and he was really mad. So that's my story about when Fadeley made Thorne really mad by taking away some of his butter.